Hello. Okay. The crowning algorithm. It's just how often you've posted as far as I understand. Hi, how are you doing? Hello, Logan. Okay. Well, I am getting people up here and we're having some problems with Twitch. Let me just double check here. How do I There we go. Copy that. Oh, lovely. Once I hit the go live button, I can't edit this. Well, what am I supposed to do? Am I just supposed to go dark on YouTube in order to fix Twitch? That's not something I'm going to do. Just had non-stop technical problems. Right, so, well, I guess maybe I can do that. Hold on. Stream settings. I don't have auto stop. I hope this doesn't. No, I'm afraid to do it. I'm afraid this is going to mess everything up. What is this about? Okay, on my back. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Okay. Oh gosh, guys can hear that? Okay. I have had so many issues this morning. I have had so many issues this morning, and it's just been a bit of a problem. So I woke up recently. I have switched to using my phone as a camera. It wirelessly. Um, uh, there's just a bunch of things to deal with that. But so I need it to be charged. And I woke up and it was at 24%. It hadn't been charging at night. And I couldn't get it to charge fast enough. So I have to use my old, not so great um, Logitech camera. And I have put it behind the. Yeah, we're. What do you mean sound gone, sound back now? Okay, was the sound cut out? I didn't expect that to be a problem. Also, I'm trying to use meld. I'm going to see how that goes. What do you mean stream doesn't play? What? Is the am I streaming? Guys? It cut out. Yes, it did cut out briefly because I had to in order to fix. So I hadn't put in the Twitch stream key, but I'd put in the Twitch stream key. I had to like stop the stream to do that, and I was very anxious about that. Wow. Okay. They're telling me my bit rate's too low now. Uh, yeah. Why can I not hear my audio lag? Testing. 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 It seems okay to me. Okay. I don't know. I have to turn up my. Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. Let's see. Meld. Can I turn on monitoring on this? Is this desync better now? A lot of things seem to be just not working the same way as they were. And I'm very confused about that. Okay. So, anyway, let's actually get on to things if I am on the stream. Hey. There we go. So, this needs to be on the right camera. Okay. Yeah. All right, guys. So, conlanging moment. All right. So, we have already done quite a bit of world building or quite a bit of stuff, right? So we have our 4 dialects sort of sorted out. And I ran a Patreon poll on this. I had the idea of well, whatever. I can't judge that sync issue myself because I can't figure out how to listen to my mic. Oh, okay. I can hear myself. Oh my gosh, that's the desync. That was not a slight issue, guys. Okay. Please do not play the recorder right now. Okay. Well, I'll be monitoring that. Oh, don't tell me something went wrong. I know what went wrong. I unplugged it. Okay. So, I have a monitor running. I can check for desync. Okay. Now, okay. So, my plan my plan is to get some like actual like thematic things decided here. Uh let's bring up our old document. And so we have our 4 dialects: dawn, day, dusk, and night. I put them in that order for reasons, but we don't necessarily need to do that everywhere. But we've we've developed quite a bit for all 4 of them. We are pretty much ready to start creating words. Now, the last time we worked on Sylvan, my plan was to develop these into a Koine, and we actually started a little bit on that, the Koineization stage, figuring out like what sounds would stay, what sounds would go, all of that stuff. However, the problem is, I mean, not necessarily a problem, but what I had thought was, after considering this, um, appreciate the recap. Thank you. I'm just making sure everyone's up to speed. The issue that I want to deal with is that a Koine, it is a useful thing to think about. However, when we're talking about, these are spellcasting languages. I think when you're casting spells, you want to be addressing a particular court and not using this compromised dialect, if you understand my meaning. And my thought has been, I would focus on Dawn and Dusk, and that way I would have basic kind of 2 spellcasting languages to choose from. Um, and then from there, um, and there's reasoning behind that. I feel that the Twilight dialects will have the most contact with mortals, and that's 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 relevant. Okay. Oh, okay. That's why everything was sounding so weird. Okay. So, we're going to focus on Dawn and Dusk from now on. However, I wanted to pull back from the linguistics work and work a little bit on like themes, domains, themes and domains. And so what we're going to do, we're going to make a table. Day, dawn, dusk, and night. Yes, the to whom this may concern is definitely something I'm not going to want to have. That's right, Liam. Is my chat not showing up? Um, it seems that there's a problem with my chat. Let me see if I can fix that quickly. I should have it. Overlay. Okay. That's weird. Okay. So is it not visible for some reason? Oh, this is. Yeah, my chat overlay is not working. Okay. Here's what I can do. That way we got chat. And I can turn down the opacity. There we go. That'll work for now. I need to figure out this new system. Okay. So what I'm going to do is we're going to figure out the different domains that, like the different themes that fit to each court, sort of things that they would rule over, things that they would be associated with. And that's going to do two things. First of all, it's going to help us decide whether a given spell should be written in the Dawn or the Dusk dialect. I need so much new equipment. Okay. I need to fix so many things. The other thing it will do is, say there's a thing that something that I feel needs to be borrowed from day or night. This will help us figure that out. You know, if it doesn't make sense for one of these dialects to have a word for it, I might want to loan in from day or night, which I definitely want to be happening. So let's kind of start with some general things. So day, obviously diurnal animals or plants. Diurnal, yeah, animals and plants. And this is nocturnal animals and plants. And then let me actually hold on. Uh, there's a thing. Gosh, my fan is going. There's a thing called crepuscular. So, so that are active during. Okay, Matit. There we go. Okay, matutinal or vespertine. So matutinal. I don't know if it even applies to plants. For example, like I think that most bats are actually vespertine. They're not actually. They don't actually come out at night. They come out at dusk. They might actually be just generally crepuscular. Um, so that's something to think about. But this is just these. At this point, we're just talking about things that would naturally align with um, these courts, right? One other thing that, yeah, I know. There are definitely diurnal and nocturnal plants. That's that's something I'm very aware of. I don't know about crepuscular plants, but there probably are some. Probably syncing up with pollinators or something. One other thing. This is I have been waiting and waiting to show you this because it is super cool. Um, Now, if you flowers famously change the openness of their petals in personal light hours, yes, exactly. There are flowers that open during the day and flowers and open during the night, and it's usually syncs up with when their pollinators are active. Um, like most of them are open during the day. Um, if they vary them at all, but like flowers that are generally that tend to be um, pollinated by bats will open up at night, right? Let's turn up the UI scale. So something interesting about um, if you are the type of person who goes outside, which I don't know, people watching this stream early in the morning, I don't know. Um, then you know that the moon, like you know that video games lie about the moon. It does not always rise with the sunset and set with the sunrise. It actually is up at different times of day, and that actually depends on the phase. Um, so, as you would expect, the the new moon reaches reaches its zenith around noon, right? The because like the new moon is what happens when the the new moon is let me the new moon is when the moon is on the same side of the earth as the sun, so you don't see it because it's not reflecting light back at the earth, right? And also that's when you get eclipses, but you don't get eclipses all the time because the moon is not moving in the same angle as the sun all the time. Yes. Well, then we get, so the full moon reaches its zenith at midnight, right? So we would associate the day with the new moon and the night with the full moon. But the interesting thing is when we get into waxing and waning moons. So the first quarter moon reaches its zenith at 8 at night. Okay? And this is, right? Or no, at 6 o'clock in the evening. So it's reaching its zenith right around sunset. This depends on your latitude and the season, right? So, first quarter moon, which is the waxing moon, would be associated with dusk. If, but the waning moon reaches its zenith about 6 in the morning. I'm just kind of going by, because I have 4 quarts, I'm going by 4 moons. Waning moon is associated with dawn. And now this does mean, okay, let's have a talk. This does mean that I am establishing this does mean that I am establishing something about your world, which I have said that with these languages, I was trying to be judicious about how much I establish about the prime material plane. This is definitely so. Just saying that, this does mean that you have at least one moon that orbits um, in the same way that Earth's moon does. And, you know, if you don't want that in your world, then I guess you're going to have to do some modifications because I'm going to be putting this into the language. Or maybe just make your own Sylvan that doesn't rely on this. I feel that it's pretty safe to have some kind of moon because, like, if I'm talking about this for D&D worlds, well, D&D druids have the circle of the moon, right? So they have already a pre-existing association with a moon. But I know that a lot of fantasy worlds do like to do weird stuff with the moons, like break it in half, get multiple moons, sometimes multiple implausible moons. There's a lot of things that people do with moons, but I'm kind of going to say, okay, my world is going to have a moon that orbits the correctly that orbits in the same direction as the rotation of the planet. If you want to do a retrograde moon or do something different, then you can make whatever modifications you need for that. So, so that means we also will have like nicer names for the courts. Maybe instead of like Dawn and Dusk, there will be the Court of the Waning Moon, the Court of the Waxing Moon. And I think there's a certain poetic quality to the fact that this is associated with beginnings in some ways, but endings in others, right? Okay. So, yeah, that's right, Liam. Yeah, shoot. Okay, in your world, there is no moon on the new moon. That works. Maybe you can swap out some of the associations for day for just the sun, which I definitely can say, like, as far as these astronomical things. Okay, the sun is also associated with the day, but also I'm not worried too much about the day dialect in like everyday play because again, people like for spellcasting, people mostly use these others. I need to maybe I can extend this table out a little bit to do things. Now we're going to get more into cultural associations and more squishy things. So like dawn, definitely beginnings, seeding, uh, birth, dusk, sort of endings, harvesting, death. And then we'll have, okay, so this is, you know, growth, life, um, stasis. This is like activity, stasis, rest, death, the the dead. So, and it's okay if there is overlap. In fact, there's going to be a thing of at times I will probably reach use dusk for certain concepts that are related to night more, and also there can be overlap between all of these things, right? Um, Now, when I say the dead, we talk about like ghosts. I'm going to say this is sort of a my world building thing that I would like to build in is that night, there are ghosts in the night, and there are maybe some undead like fae, things like the night hag and the banshee, but overall, corporeal undead are antithetical to the fae because in my sense, like the undead are sort of anti-life, anti-nature. They they suck in life energy in order to give themselves this false life. And like the fae don't like them. They aren't really present in fairy at all. But ghosts might be there. Okay, let's I'm gonna pull back. Okay, so Logan, speaking of sunlight hours, I just finished the third semiosis book, and the bamboo characters use sun angle and day lengths to communicate dates and times to each other. That's interesting. Um let's see. And again, I'm not going to do anything with like the crescent moon or the gibbous moon, just because I have four quartz, and I will work with the four quartz. There may be like interesting, if I like build an adventure book or something, I might build in some like specific like magical relationships, like, you know, we can also say, okay, these things also have an association with seasons, even though I'm not using seasonal quartz. So day, obviously summer and winter, right? And then just sort of by association, this would be spring and fall, right? Not, uh, although it doesn't really, that sort of comes from human interpretation in a little bit, because like they're both equinoxes, but this is dusk is the tradition transition from day to night. So, and fall and autumn is the transition between summer and winter, right? That's how it works. Or other powerful entity. Oh, yep. So, Charles, what are you talking about? Other powerful entities? Or are you talking about back when we're talking about whether a wizard did something? Um, yeah. So that's my general thoughts there. Now, hmm. So, and then I want to actually, this can be an overlap between dusk and night. I actually want to, here's an interesting possible contradiction. I think I actually want to associate like healing with dusk and night, because these are the times when you are resting, and resting is necessary for healing. How do people feel about that? That also means that there's sort of contradictions. Um, day instead is the time of, well, I said activity up here. Let's actually put that down. Yeah, well, I mean, kind of. So, action. Also can be sort of action. You can have sort of movement here, right? The thing is, like, Liam, is like resting is important for healing. Resting conserves your body's energy for you to heal yourself, right? So it kind of makes sense as an association. And now I've talked quite a bit. I want to open it up to you guys. What associations do you think we're neglecting? What do you think what would you guys like to suggest as associated with any of these? Yeah, healing is part of a big part of druidic stuff. Yeah, yeah, that is like if you have a party that like cares a lot about composition, usually a druid is going to be one of the healers, right? I think that's less. I think that 5e is less concerned with that, but because like a lot of people have healing and you can have an action druid more easily, but it depends, right? I want to know why this. What is going on with this spotlight? Is it just showing like the last person who subbed or something? There's. It's just saying James Mills on there. Okay. Oh, that's a cool idea. So, banishment and cleansing. I kind of like that. Yeah, the dread. Yeah, tanky druids. Is it like the druid that turns into a bear and goes fight on the front line? Um, day is it? So Charles Barrow has this idea of it's like okay, associate like south, east, um, west, and north. Now I can definitely say this is east and this is west, right? Because assuming a world like ours, it's always you're always have the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. The issue with saying this is south and this is north, again, assuming you have an Earth-like planet that is that has people living on the northern and southern hemispheres, that part is not going to be as strong because in our world there are places where the sun reaches its zenith up in the north, right? So I will say we'll keep make east and west, but make this sort of an option because like one of the things I will establish um, is that the Fae exist everywhere. There are ways into fairy from everywhere, ways out of fairy everywhere in the world. And let me and so they are and the Fae also are equally aware of all plants and animals in the world too. So like since they are sort of global, we're not necessarily going to make a strong associated of whether they're yeah yeah um in fact we could even make it if we wanted to do this in a universal way, we could say equator and poles. That way, it's relative to which hemisphere you're in, right? Because where the sun is in the sky is dependent on the equator, right? It also does not leave out places where you are on the equator, which where the sun actually at certain times of the year can be directly overhead. Which I think it's called Lahaina Noon in Hawaii. If you look that up, it's a wild time because there's a short while that the sun is directly overhead, and you can see that shadows go directly underneath of things to the point where like images look fake because there are no shadows. Yeah. I think so. You make a good point. I'm going to actually add a new. I'm going to do one with some merged cells. Both Dawn and Dusk are associated with transitions, transformations, and let me ban a spammer. Hold on. Hold on. Why is it being tricky? And I can delete that message too. Oh, it's gonna show up anyway. Can I hide this? Okay. Yeah, they could. That might be what they would say is like sunward and anti-sunward, something like that. But we'll keep it clear in our language for now. Um, and again, night is sort of associated with stasis. This is more like steady activity, right? And this is like stasis. No shadow time. So, yeah, I think we have a kind of a good start on this. I think we're pretty solid on this. We can always add to this as we come up with new things. Another thing we want to talk about is come on. Give me let me make things after this. Okay. Now, this is going to be also important as we're coining words, is that we have 5 noun classes. And I'm going to make this so autotrophs, And let me pull up my original notes so that I am sure that I'm getting this right. We need to go to nouns, noun classes. So autotrophs, herbivores. We're going to need to coin words for each of these. Predators. Decomposers. And stretch this table a little bit. And what is the last one? Yeah, inanimates. So autotrophs, obviously. So let's talk about what the core members of these classes are. Autotrophs, obviously, it's plants, and anything, and chemotrophs. Basically, anything that gets its energy from the environment and not from eating other things, right? And then herbivores. Okay, you get again. It's yes, herbivores. Predators. Again, now obligate carnivores are in here, but it's specifically the predatory lifestyle. So let's talk about like specific examples here. We'd have deer, horses, mice. I think mice are usually no rabbits. Anything that's primarily an herbivore. Predators includes tigers, wolves, humans. Humans are predators, even if, and I've thought about pronoun discourse will be very different in Sylvan because there are no gendered pronouns for masculine, feminine, but there are different pronouns for different noun classes, and maybe there are some vegans who would want to be classed as herbivores. But like the ecosystem role is still kind of predator. What noun class are whales? Whales whales would be predators. I think all cetaceans are predatory. Um, close that. Finally, base pronoun discourse. Yes. Israel Bolden, what's up? We are working on my Fey language. That's what's up. Because so you even baleen whales. Well, what is the food source for baleen whales? Their food source is krill, which is a type of shrimp. It's actually so they're eating animals. It's the circle of life is different in the ocean. Pronoun discourse based on where one fits in the circle of life is exactly where my D&D sessions. That's wonderful. Yeah. So definitely whales and flamingos are predators, right? Even though the creatures they eat are tiny, they're still like eating things. Yeah. So in the decomposer class is actually, so decomposers, and and I will say parasites. So this is where like the lifestyle. So this is going to be like, actually mosquitoes is, so mosquitoes, I just, I'm just going to say this, female mosquitoes, question mark, because this is one of the ones where actually it might not be the best example, probably more ticks, and like chiggers would be better examples for parasites, because uh only the female mosquitoes feed on blood. The male mosquitoes are nectar feeders, if I understand correctly. So, do I put the two sexes of mosquitoes in different classes, or do I choose one? What am I going to do? That's an interesting question. You've heard people call parasites predators that eat numbers of prey less than one. So my reasoning with putting parasites with decomposers is based on some things that I've heard from people talking about ecology. Um, Liam, actually, I don't know if Strahd would be classed as a decomposer. He might be classed as inanimate. He might be classed in a number of different ways. I need to figure out exactly what vampires would be seen as, because on the one hand, there are arguments for calling them predators or decomposers. I would say, like, blood feeding doesn't make him a decomposer because he does kill people, right? Um, However, to the Fae, he might actually be classed as inanimate because he's corporeal undead. Um, I'm not entirely sure about that, because my conception of what a vampire is, and if I ever run a game with vampires, I will probably modify them to be like this. My conception, based on my reading of Bram Stoker's Dracula, is that vampires are actually kind of ghosts, um, and their bodies are partially illusory. Let me expand on. So, the my view here actually comes from reading Dracula a couple of times, and there are several, like, things that happen in there. First, there is a point where Jonathan Harker actually sees lights through Dracula's body, right? So clearly, like, he's kind of insubstantial. There's also, like, a point where he is attacked and a knife passes through him as if he wasn't there. Um, and like, one of the transformations that is very prominent in that book is transforming into a cloud of dust. It's described as like the as both Dracula and his wives at various points appear as motes of dust that then coalesce into their forms. There's also a yeah a partial glamour also lines up with Anne Rice. I'm not so familiar with Anne Rice, but yeah, it's sort of there's also things of so when the other thing is like this is a little bit the book sort of contradicts itself on this because when Lucy dies, when Lucy is destroyed, she actually looks like remarkably well preserved at the end. But when Dracula and his wives are destroyed, they instantly become dust. And it's sort of yeah, dust pretending to be the aristocracy. And so the implication there is that their whole being, their bodies were held together by whatever magic makes them a vampire, whatever infernal deal the Dracula made that turned him into a vampire, like keeps his body constituted. But then as soon as you destroy him, he is instantly like decayed to the point that he would have been over those centuries. So he just becomes dust immediately. I mean, so demonic possession, I mean, Dracula was like sort of it's sort of implied to have some sort of association with the devil, right? Yeah, Lucy had only been dead for a few days. Um but there was a description of like because she was at peace, she looked better after they destroyed her, which is wild because they cut her head off. Yeah, yeah. I like it too. It also fits with the idea of they don't appear in mirrors. That's a lot of vampire fiction just like leaves that unexplained. It's like the vampires just don't appear in mirrors. It's like why? And if they are actually ghosts that are using like using some kind of blood magic to appear corporeal, then that fits, right? To using something to hold their bodies together, then like the mirror reveals the illusion by not showing them, right? There were I have heard that there were drafts of Dracula where there were also interesting things that happen if you photograph him. Like he would appear as like a skeleton if you photograph him. Okay, so inanimates. I mean, rocks, rocks. Um, uh, metal. Well, most metals. We'll get into this. On living things. Now, now that we have that sort of worked out, this is like the semantic core of each of the classes. Now, the thing is, what are we going to do with things that don't fit in these categories? Or maybe that might fit in one, but like thematically might be moved to another. Oh, it's like a specific thing. Or an ancient brass mirror. What? The Lincoln vampire is being silver is a metal cursed by Judas's betrayal, which is interesting. Which implies a modern mirror would show a vampire reflection. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard the silver thing. I think that's a relatively newer um, interpretation that silver will not reflect vampires because they are evil and silver is pure or something. Um, um, yes. So that's one that I actually want to ask you guys about. Um, Charles Barrow points out the sun and the moon. Let's take them one at a time because I think they have slightly different things. So I have different ideas on what the sun could be. Um, so let's talk about autotroph. Now, obviously, autotrophs get energy from the sun. Yeah, plants get energy from the sun. So that's like a by association thing. Yeah, that's another thing. Another thought I had was decomposer. The sun provides energy. Oh, I never actually went through. So the reason I put decomposers and parasites together is that um, they fit as a category of things that free up energy that would otherwise be lost to the system. Decomposers are consuming dead things that other things don't want to eat, and parasites are drawing energy out of larger animals that would otherwise be locking up that energy for a long time. And that's why I do that. Yeah. We could have the pair of sun as autotroph and moon as herbivore. Um, I only say like decomposer energy, um, nuclear fusion is is kind of decomposition. Not that they actually know anything about nuclear fusion. I would say the Fae do not actually know how the sun works. Um, but it's a thought. Um, a higher level category for things that create energy themselves, like the sun and certain magical things. Possibly, I kind of decided instead to my my decision was to leave celestial bodies out of it and make it sort of work in a different way. Um, it's I kind of don't know if I want to add another noun class at this point, and I want to just kind of deal with putting things in here. Another thing I want to say is one specific reason I was thinking sun as a decomposer is the Fae do not have any moral judgment about these the way that humans often do. So humans like will think of parasites particularly, and also decomposers as like evil associated with evil. Um, it's an illumination cantrip, just god level. Okay. Um, they're also the Fae. The way I'm conceiving of the Fae is, I think I had this up in my my initial notes about my initial world building stuff is that in history, the Fae sort of developed as I don't know if I have it like specifically noted. The Fae sort of developed as a level below the celestial gods. And they are more concerned with the earth and things that are local on the world. um the So making a whole new category for the sun is a little bit out of it. We could also say, like, it's inanimate but special. Like, we could have some special notation, some special agreement marking or something that, like, yes, it generally falls in the inanimate category, but because um, cities are autotrophs. Are cities autotrophs or herbivores or predators? I'm actually thinking, so cities develop usually when they're, now this is getting into the weeds of history. Most of the time larger cities develop with agriculture. It doesn't have to be agriculture, but there usually needs to be a plant-based food source. I can see cities being either in herbivore or predator. Predator because they're occupied by predators usually. Um, let's leave it for the moment. Um, so like inanimate for special. And then okay, I'll if we do a sixth class, I want to do something interesting with it. I don't want to just like create a sixth class because we need it for the sun. If we could go with sun as autotroph and moon as herbivore, we could go with sun as inanimate and the moon as an autotroph. Um, and also a thing that I really wanted to harp on is the Fae have supernatural knowledge of things that are in the natural world on Earth. They have supernatural knowledge of yeah. Yeah, I don't think cities can be autotrophs either because so a living city requires like plants and meat. So I think probably predator is where they would go, right? Um, so I think we'll just for now, and it might end up being like this is a derived word and it just inherits a class from something else, right? Decomposers. I don't know. Let's think about that. We don't need a word for city right this moment, but it might be good to think about that. Yeah. Okay. There's also a thing of like the sun's energy. The sun's energy doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from fusion reactions inside it. However, the Fae do not know that. The Fae know things about the natural world on Earth. They do not have supernatural knowledge of how the sun works or how the moon works. And a lot of D&D worlds, the sun does not work by nuclear fusion. There's different things that the sun is just a magic thing, or the sun has a sun dragon living in it, or there's all kinds of things like um do the Fae live in cities? I think that although they are associated with the wild and with the natural world, I would say that some of the Fae do have cities and strongholds. They may they will be reflecting the humans, though possibly a little bit into the past. So the different Fae courts have their own palaces and castles and possibly cities. The cities might look very different from human cities. They may integrate more into the environment. They may also just be like amplified, like bigger and grander than anything in the human world. There's a lot of ways it could be, and it probably will depend on the personality of each court. Um, one thing, okay. One thing that I will say is, um, like night is associated with stasis, and the night dialect is the most conservative of the four dialects because that is how night is. It's like it's kind of further in the past than any of the others. Um, that's another one. Like the past, dawn is like the future. I could say like this is the near past. Something. Although my Feywild will not have time travel. There will be time weirdness, but there will not be time travel. Like you can't go into the past, but you might go in there for 5 minutes and find out 5 years have passed. You know? Think. Let's actually. So I kind of want to put this up to a vote. I'm going to consider carefully my options because I really am wanting to work with what I have and not like. So the sun, yeah, sun, the moon, stars. We could also have like stars here. Stars could be their own thing. Um, let's talk a little bit about abstract concepts. So like emotions. And I think things that are unending. So there's arguments for, so emotions can be autotrophs, arguments for them to be decomposers, because they live in your brain. They live on your brain. I think that we decided there was a particular let's look up language. What? Okay, so we decided that the tongue falls into class 3 predator. And I think the reason for it is like the owner is a predator. We have tooth. Fang. Let's look through. Let's look through all our nouns. I think people are telling me that I messed up with leafhopper, that they're not predators. I need to look at that. Yeah, emotions can eat memories. That's an idea. Okay, yes. Hapus milk. What is milk? The Fae are predators. Chain is inanimate, I think. We have relatively few. Body. So body, we have So I think there's going to be two strategies for body parts. Cat. So I mean, I don't know if I would say I've finished any of them. We're going to be doing continuing work on the Dawn and Dusk dialects to develop them enough to do spells, right? Okay, so leafhoppers are they're parasites. Okay, I will double check that and see if I can um same class as the owner works best for uh parts that are specific to a given strategy. Predators are more likely to have fangs. Herbivores more likely have molars. Only autotrophs have leaves. Just generally, based on, and then the other strategy, these will be both employed depending on the word. Shift tab based on the function, and that's going to overlap. Like fangs are used for ripping meat, so they're um. But like, let's see. I think lungs could always be autotrophs because the function of the lungs is to draw air out of the environment in order to help produce energy. So that's very like autotroph coded, right? Um uh Stomach probably leans herbivore or predator. No, no. Stomach is a decomposer. The stomach is a decomposer. Of course it is. Right? Because what does your stomach do? It's got acid in there that breaks things down. That's what decomposers do. Right? There. So the stomach is a decomposer. Acid and bacteria breaking down dead material, right? Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The stomach is a decomposer. Probably most of the digestive tract. Once you get beyond like the mouth, like we said, the tongue is a predator. Teeth can be like predators or um or herbivores based on their function. Um, but once you get into the stomach and the intestines, that's all decomposition. Yeah. The entire digestive system post mouth would be decomposed. Right. Yeah. Right. 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 Only things like the predatory ones parts would be things that actually can attack animals. Um, because it's all about extracting energy from dead stuff. So that works. Um, In fact, I think the functional thing is going to be the dominant strategy, because even these things um, are going to be much more are going to be already doing functions that are related. Um, like leaves are gathering energy from the sun. Leaves are getting energy from the sun. Um, Fangs are attacking and killing things. Talons are generally used for killing things. Hands. What strategy do we use for hands? Because like for human hands, there's a lot of things that human hands do. How medically up to date is the phase understanding of how the body works? So this is an interesting question. My So they have unnaturally complete knowledge of all plants and animals. And I think to some extent that includes how the body works. However, my sort of out for that allows me to not like make their language completely scientific is that there are certain things they don't care about. So in terms of like classifying plants and animals, they have preternatural knowledge of that, but they don't care a whole lot about cladistics. And that is my way of avoiding having to name creatures by clade, and then inevitably some of them will be wrong because either I made a mistake or like the new science came out and the classifications are different now. Um, in terms of body functions, I think I will have a similar thing. Is they basically they have a knowledge of how the brain works. Um, Now the brain may work slightly differently than in real life because this is a fantasy world and magic exists. So like there may be a real verifiable soul that contacts the world through the brain, whereas in the real world, probably not. But people believe different things about that. Um, uh, but I think that they have some idea of what the brain does. The magichondria is the powerhouse of the mage. I'm thinking I'm thinking I'm thinking actually of have you guys has seen the Owl House? There's there are so Owl House does the thing where witches are a different species than humans, right? And one biological difference is they have a special um organ. I think it's actually their heart stores magical bile that they use to create magic. Um, Midichlorians. Yeah, their their heart stores magical bile, and there's the biggest like a big difference. The protagonist is a human who goes to the witch world and learns magic, but she has to do magic in a different way because she does not have magical bile. Instead, she has to find a way, and she doesn't actually realize this is what she's doing at first, but she is drawing magic from the environment, from the body of the titan that forms the islands that they live on, right? So Yeah, the heart is a is it a bile sac, or is I thought it was actually like in the heart. That yeah, the heart would not be a good place to store bile. You would need an extra uh place, right? um but anyway, that's just just like was thinking about that. What would the brain be? So what are things related to this, the to like my existing system, that apply to the brain? The brain, number one, uses a lot of energy, like a lot of energy, especially human brains use a lot of energy. um, but they get that energy from the other parts of the body. Yeah. um, so the brain is transmitting electrochemical signals within itself and to other parts of the body. Its main function is processing information, um, and controlling the body. But like in terms of the energy efficiency, maybe it's an autotroph. I definitely want. I definitely do not want any of the like body. I don't want anything that's like part of your body to be inanimate, right? Even hair that is mostly like non-living, I kind of don't want it to be inanimate. I think um we can have another strategy too. Let's add another thing here based on sort of call this metaphorical imagery. And I will say hair, feathers, etc. are autotrophs. They grow out of your body like stalked plants do. Well, they could be autotrophs or decomposers, because depending on whether you make the metaphor about like they're growing like plants or they're growing like fungi. Because if they're growing out of a living thing and drawing energy from the living thing, that's kind of more like fungal growth, and that's kind of a decomposer thing to do. Uh, oh, yeah, that's a good one. Bones are autotrophs. They are like a wooden frame for the body. Right? Yeah. That's a good idea, Bliam. The bones are wood. Fix my audio again. Okay. That delay is not too bad. Which is the correct spelling on this? My spell checker is failing me. Okay. Think about like the skin. What is the function of skin? It protects and separates your body from the environment. I think skin probably is an autotroph just because it's like its function is very passive and it's not really involved in like harming or killing things. The tricky ones are like hands and feet because there's a lot of things that hands do. And you could argue them for being predators because that's like for humans the primary tool for killing things. Um but there are herbivores that have hands. Gorillas, would you call a gorilla's hand a predator? Because they're foliivores. They don't really kill things that often. Um, that might be a one where you just end up with different words for hands based on the class of the owner. Um, that's entirely a possibility. Feet. Well, feet trample things, so that maybe they could be herbivores or decomposers. Yeah. Hooves. Hooves. I was going to say hooves would definitely be herbivores because herbivores have hooves. However, all like extant hooved animals are, I think, all herbivores. However, if you are a creature that has preternatural knowledge of the natural world, you know, and in fact, some of these may still exist in fairy because of time weirdness. You may actually encounter hooved predators, which did exist. Um, I believe that cetaceans actually evolved from a hoofed predator, if I'm not mistaken. Hooves are keratin. That's a good point. Like you could call them autotrophs because they are keratin like hair. You could make a similar argument for horns, although horns also are functionally for fighting, which might make them lean toward predator, right? Um, but hooves can be used for fighting, but that's not their main function. I think like there. Technically, hooves are the same as nails and claws. That's right. They are. What's the term? Is it homologous? I think they're homologous with fingernails and claws. However, claws are definitely predators. Claws are definitely predatory. They may not always have the function of weapons. They can be used for other things, but one of their functions is as a weapon, right? Um, one of their main functions is as a weapon. So I think they're going to be predators. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, so antlers go through a steady stage where they appear bloody. That's you're talking about when the velvet needs to be scraped off. So, if for people who are watching this who may not know how deer work or how antlered creatures work, um, antlers when they grow out and they antlers as opposed to other kinds of like horns, like true horns or other kinds of things that grow out of creature's head, they grow out every year. And when they grow out, they are covered in what's called velvet, which is basically like a furry skin covering. And part of the process is when they're fully grown out, um, that velvet needs to be scraped off, which the animals that have antlers have an instinct to like scrape against. Um, yeah. The, are they bones though, Tinguish? I think they're just keratin. Um, I don't know if they're actually bones. But like there's depending on which function you use, I'm thinking on basically functionally horns and antlers are would be predators because they're primarily weapons. However, if you go to with the metaphorical imagery, they kind of look like trees. You could call them autotrophs, right? Antler on Tiefling's discourse took up at least half an hour in one of my D&D sessions. Oh, come on. If somebody wants to make a tiefling that has antlers, just let them have a tiefling with antlers. I don't see an issue there. The core is bone? Yeah. Yeah, antlers are mostly for fighting. Yeah, so that's the antlers. Um, antlers, horns, the weird nubs that giraffes have. I forget what they're called. There's also something, but they're those are all weapons. They are the that's what biologists call them. They call them weapons. Now, they're not used as weapons for the same reason as like fangs and claws. Definitely as like fangs, because you're not killing something for to eat it. It's for mate competition and sometimes for defense. Bone cancers? Ossicones. That's what giraffes have. And that's right. They don't have so um what like bovids have, like cows and goats and sheep and gazelles, they have what's called true horns, which has a bone core and a keratin sheath, and they're permanent. As opposed to antlers, which fall off every year, right? Um, the ossicones, the ossicones, I guess, are just like bone projections with a skin covering, which presume they are used as weapons, right? Although the way the giraffes fight, I don't think they use them that much nowadays. Maybe they're kind of like a remnant, because I've seen videos of giraffes fighting and they just kind of like stand side by side and like swing their necks into each other. Um, hmm. So I think we have a general idea. I think these three broad strategies will cover any body part. Emotions, I think we'll think about strategies for emotions based on also emotions. I also want to be living things. If we added Logan's like sort of energetic class, we could actually put emotions there, but emotions also kind of live in your brain, and maybe if we could establish what your brain is. So what is a brain? So we said it uses a lot of energy, doesn't directly isn't directly used for eating anything. Primary function is processing information and controlling the body. So like autotroph is one. I like my brain, my mind generally goes toward, unless there's another reason for it to be something else, my mind tends to go toward internal organs being autotrophs. Um, like we have strong reasons to say the stomach is a decomposer. We have strong reasons beyond just a default that lungs should be autotrophs. But I also like feel like I think of other organs as autotrophs too, just because they're not like the internal organs are not actively involved in a lot of things. Also, we can think about the stomach being a decomposer and also extracting the energy from other things. This is part of the circle of life that the decomposers put energy back into the system for autotrophs to use, right? Because what do decomposers do? They turn dead things into soil, which is then taken up by plants. So I'm thinking that the brain is probably an autotroph, just as a default thing. Which, if we consider emotions as like drawing energy from the brain, then we would say either they are decomposers or they are herbivores. But I don't want to call them herbivores because herbivores consume things and emotions don't necessarily consume your brain. Except, okay, decomposers. Actually, that's it. There we go. There we go. And that gets into the weird moral stuff. Is so if we say the brain is an autotroph, right? Most of your emotions are parasites in the brain. They are fueled by the brain, but they're not actively going to kill it, right? However, some emotions are herbivores because they eat your brain. Um, and they consume you and fill up your brain to where it's blood blood could be autotroph, I think, because so I could see arguments for blood either being an autotroph or a decomposer. Emotions are brain worms. Exactly. However, so you can see, so this comes from me like not thinking of the not trying to break from the human thought of morality, because we would probably flip this, right? We would probably class this in totally different way. But parasites are not um, are not seen as negative by the fairies. And in fact, we could say symbiotes, right? The decomposer class includes parasites, but it also includes symbiotes. Of symbiotes. Like a lichen probably will go into decomposer class, even though it's got an autotroph and a decomposer together. Basically, but like maybe like the moss component of the lichen, the algae component of the lichen is an autotroph, and the fungal component is a decomposer in decomposer class because it's like a symbiote, right? Yes, right. Decomposers containing symbiotes, and emotions are symbiotes. They live on the brain. They are not necessarily bad, right? Um, we're not giving a moral judgment. Parasite almost is like the difference between a symbiote and a parasite is almost a moral value judgment. Um, like the technical definition is like they do harm to their host, and they're a parasite. However, like aside from being a disease vector, what harm really does a mosquito do to you? It makes you itchy. It makes you itchy, and it's a vector for diseases. But the actual amount of blood that it gets from you is not significant. So it's not like yes, itchy. Although the thing is, like, the itchiness also is an adaptive trait on our end because we don't want mosquitoes to bite us. And we have good reasons to not have mosquitoes bite us. But like the biggest reasons are them being a disease vector, right? Um because the amount of blood that they take is not significant. Um but we don't want to have those, we don't want to get malaria, right? So what we have is we have almost all humans have an allergic reaction to mosquito saliva, which causes the bumps to be itchy, and that alerts us to the fact that we've been bitten by mosquitoes. We need to kill the mosquitoes or get out of the area or something like that, right? Yeah. So I think that's we've gone over time, but I think I have a very good base for thinking about this as I go on. I wanted to get this done because we're gonna have to coin a lot of words to for examples going forward, and also Lexember is coming up, and it's not all going to be plants and animals, and not all going to be living things. So we need to have some ideas for how to get this. I'm going to save this, save and put it in the tongues and runes folders. Well, where the heck is Conlangery? We need to go to Sylvan. I could come up with a better thing, and I will get this up on the Patreon at some point. But this is our general idea. Thank you all for your help. Um, nature's dirty needle. Yes, that's what mosquitoes are. It's not their fault. It's not their fault that some other things have found it advantageous to exist in their digestive tract to conveniently be injected into mammals. Okay. They're not bad. They're just living. Um, okay. All right. Thank you all for watching. Thanks, Juno. And um, hopefully next time I will have my stuff together, have everything together a little bit better, and be able to do things better. Eventually, I got to upgrade all of my setup, but that's for later. I don't make enough money to do that quickly. So, yeah, the Fae are just funky little guys. So we'll do a little bit more actual like conlaying stuff next time. I just wanted that base to know how to think about my classes. And maybe I'll run a poll about what class the sun fits into between now and then, so that we can have a like a general idea of how that's going to go. All right. Well,